This is Close Encounters. Close Encounters. True stories, real people. Close Encounters on Cross Rhythms.
Yes, hello and welcome to Close Encounters with me, Anne Donaldson. My guest today is Colin Squires. And Colin is a husband and father who loves spending time with his family. He works in the finance industry as well as serving in his church in Newcastle upon Tyne. So Colin, welcome to Close Encounters.
Thank you, it's great to be here.
So looking forward to hearing your story. Tell us a little bit about your early years, where you were born, and a little bit about that time of life.
So I was born in Birkenhead in the Wirral, and I lived there until I was maybe 6 years old before my dad got a job in the West Midlands in Stafford. So we moved as a family there, and I was there into my early 20s, I think, until I was 21, and then I moved up to Newcastle. But I've been fortunate enough to dot around a little bit as well. So I had a few months working down in Gloucestershire when I was about 18 years old. So I think I've travelled around a little bit and just generally had good opportunities to see the country before I settled up in Newcastle, and now I live down just in Sunderland, so about half hour outside of Newcastle.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about home. Was there a Christian home? Was it a happy experience?
So my upbringing wasn't necessarily a Christian one as such. I think I was raised with good values, but my dad he's open to faith. He's respectful of people's faith, but he's never been a believer. My mum was raised in. I think her mum was Catholic, so my mum was raised with some traditional values, and she went to church into her late teens until she moved away from home for college. So I wouldn't say my home definitely wasn't a Christian home when I was growing up, but we had good values. We're raised to, myself and my brother were raised to be respectful of people, to be kind, to be polite, to try and love people as much as we can. But yeah, it wasn't a Christian home at all. It is a good home, but not a Christian one.
So did you have influences around you? Did you have any Christian influence around you?
Kind of, yeah. So the primary school that I went to when we moved to Stafford was a Church of England school. So we being Church of England is my first sort of introduction to the fact that there's a God. And before that, I hadn't heard anything about God at all. I'd not heard anything about Jesus. I think the first sort of introduction to Jesus was being at the park with some friends, and they were reenacting Jesus being nailed to a cross. And that was the first time I ever heard of Jesus. And then like going through a Church of England primary school, there was little introductions, and it was a case of in our morning assembly we'd sing hymns, we'd pray at the end, we'd have to pray when we went for our dinner, and I think once a term or every month or 6 weeks we'd have to go to church for assembly as well. So there's little introductions of this is Christianity, but there's no massive influence at that point for me. My earliest sort of memory of having a proper introduction whilst at school was actually my year 6 leaving assembly, which was either done by or we invited for local priest or reverend, and he came and he spoke to all believers for a little while and gave us all Bibles, but that was that. There's no specific introduction at that point. It's just a case of, as I went to a school that had good teachers, they followed, again, it's like being at home, they followed a specific set of rules. We're being in Church of England school, they gave introductions, but there's no massive influence as such at that point.
No. So as you grew up and moved on to secondary school, was there influences
There's one specific influence that at the time didn't mean anything to me, but looking back, it did have quite a profound impact. So there's assembly in either year 7 or year 8 where we had evangelists come to speak to our year group. And these evangelists they've been going around schools, they've been fortunate enough to travel the world, and they gave a testimony about how they're meant to be in New York during the terrorist attacks in 2001. And their testimony was one of they were either meant to be in one of the twin towers at the time of the attack, or they're meant to be on one of the planes. But for one reason or another, they'd had a meeting cancelled, or something got cancelled, which meant that they weren't actually in where they're meant to be at the time. And it is my first sort of introduction to the fact that God protects people, and their disappointment at the time, I imagine, having meetings cancelled, being in a completely different country for a specific purpose, being told in the morning, okay, this isn't going ahead, to them looking at the news a little bit later and being like, wow, thank God we weren't in that place, because we've been preserved, we've been protected.
Yeah.
And looking back, that's our first real introduction to who God is and what He is, and in terms of how He protects us, in terms of how He preserves us, and how He'll disrupt our plans to make sure that we're safe.
Yeah. It must have had an impact for you to remember this detail and to start you thinking along those lines.
Definitely, yeah, because I can't remember much else from school. Like, I remember little bits. I remember a teacher who wasn't very nice. I remember some friendship groups, but that assembly had a huge impact.
Yeah.
And at the end of the assembly as well, the evangelists gave every person in our year group a Bible, which I think, like I said, the assembly itself didn't mean much to me at the time, and the Bible itself didn't mean much to me at the time as well. It just ended up in a drawer for several years. But yeah, looking back, I think that's a first sort of is a first pivotal moment in my faith, and it took a long time for that to fall into place with me, but it's definitely an important moment.
Definitely there. Oh, that's wonderful. I think it'd be a good time for us to listen to the first song that you've chosen to share with us today. And would you like to introduce it, Colin?
Okay, yes. So the first song I've chosen is one called "One More Day" by Sons of Sunday, and I think the opening 2 lines are just really important to me. It says, "I'm a sinner, but grace is still healing." And it's just a fact that in our faith, like, nothing's ever complete, but there's always a new grace, a new mercy for us.
That's lovely. Thank you. Rhythms. You're listening to Close Encounters. I'm Anne Donaldson, and my guest today is Colin Squires. And Colin, we were hearing about how you'd put a Bible away in a drawer, and that will come back to light, won't it, later in your story? So in the meantime, what was happening?
So I think, like, going through high school, I had the same experience as everyone else, and like, as enjoying high school to an extent, but having, I think, the same challenges as everyone who goes through high school. But I also had a bit of a additional challenge, and like, when I went to high school, I loved playing cricket and loved playing sport, but I found that I was getting quite a lot of in like year 9, I was getting a lot of swelling in my knees, a lot of discomfort in my back, discomfort in my shoulders, and it got to a point of me having to like go to a GP for different tests, because this was like, my knees were getting to almost twice the size at some. Well, it felt like twice the size at some point. So there's definitely something going wrong, and there's definitely something not right. And my GP ran so many tests, and they came back with me having the test showed that I had a gene which could lead to a condition called ankylosing spondylitis. And I found that I was having quite a few different issues at this point. Like, I was starting to have restricted mobility. and just a lot of tight. And obviously, like being 13, 14 years old, like you do get tired. Like school is like looking back, school was easy, but at the time, school was hard. Like is intense. There's so much that we had to do, as well as like trying to play cricket. I think is 1 or 2 lunchtimes a week, as well as after school on in the summer months.
Yeah.
So I was starting to really struggle physically, and in hindsight, I wasn't struggling that much. But with being such a massive change and such a new challenge, I was struggling a lot, and I'm really grateful for my mum because she would be taking me to hospital appointments, taking me back and forth to a GP, and but it's something which had a massive toll on my mental health, and it got to a point where I was no longer able to play cricket, and which is something that I loved. That it impacted how I was socializing as well. So with my physical health getting worse bit by bit, my mental health was definitely starting to struggle. And I think towards the end of year 9, maybe year 10, I started to really enter depression, and along with this, I was losing, like I said, I was losing bits of my social life, and I think starting to struggle with things like anxiety as well, just like different things piling up at the time.
Yeah.
And it's which like it led to me just not being in the right place.
Yeah.
And it led to me being quite low. It led to me just not knowing where I fit in. Like the social circle that I had where I went to high school just kind
Yeah.
of disappeared. The
Yeah.
friends I created through sport disappeared, and so I started making new friends. And but I just didn't feel I wasn't happy.
Yeah.
I think is the best way to put it.
No.
I wasn't who I'd been previously. And like I said, I definitely entered a period of depression which lasted for years. Something that probably started a lot earlier than I realized as well. Uh, but it's something that looking back, like I'm grateful
Yeah.
because it's something which did keep me. Well, it's part of my past. It's something that I can't take. It's something I can't get rid of. It's
That's
something that I can't change. You know, as much as we can look back and want to change the past, we can't do it, unfortunately. I'm sure if all of us could click our fingers and change things in our past, we would. And something which, when I speak to God about now, like, or when I have challenges now, I can look back and say, okay, I've overcome this in the past. The God who helped me to overcome in the past is the same God. And, and yeah, I
so.
think I'm just
Yeah.
grateful for the journey I've been on in terms of that because it is one of being able to overcome.
Yeah, and it will have shaped you. It will have shaped your character. And like you say, that period of time now, God can use for his glory. Nothing's wasted with God, is it?
Oh, definitely not. And I think it's something which is good for my witness as well because every day, like we run into people in different walks of life. It can be whether it's in the workplace, whether it's just on the bus, in on the street, so we can talk to people about what we've been through, and
Yes.
it makes it more relatable.
Yeah.
I think everyone would love to say they were poor and didn't have a soul period, and but the reality is we've all got a past that, like you said, it shapes us and it helps us. It brings glory to God.
Yeah. Yeah. So, was it during this period that you moved up north, or was it after this period?
So it is, I'd say during this period because moved I moved up north in 2011, but I think there's a specific moment in my life which happened in 2008, which I think is quite important for how I actually moved up north as well. So I mentioned earlier about receiving a Bible, which ended up in a drawer, and like in the middle of a depression, I found this Bible again. It's a really sunny morning in I think it's May 2008. So yeah, not long before I turned 18, and for one reason or another, as just in my bedroom, looking through the drawers under my bed, and I found this Bible, and I saw in the first few pages it just had different verses of scripture for different seasons of life, and there's one for loneliness, which and I turned to Revelation chapter 3 verse 20, which reads, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock. He who answers, I shall dine with him, and he with me." And I remember reading that, and the room just lit up. Like it is already a sunny morning, but the room itself just lit up, and I felt a sense of warmth.
Wow.
And this time, when I first realized, okay, there is a God, not just the God of the evangelist, not just a God who gave people values at school, but there's a God who really cares for me and who loves me and is there for me if I want him to be there.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think that's a pivotal moment for me which led to me actually moving to Newcastle, because even though I had this moment, I know that it led to me changing my destiny. It led to me being saved, but it didn't have any change on my day-to-day living, unfortunately, because I was still struggling with loneliness. I was still struggling with depression and anxiety, and with that, there's an aspect of trying to get validation, trying to seek approval, which led to me creating a lot of bad friendships, and led to just not having a good circle of friends ultimately.
Right. Yeah.
And like I said, this was in 2008, but I had 2.5 years, almost 3 years, where my friendship circles were really bad for me, and they're definitely destroying me. Dest- I think that's the only way to say it. They're
Yeah.
destroying me.
Yeah.
They're destroying my health. Destroying any future I could have, and I think that led to me wanting to just escape. And when I was in when I studied at Stafford College, I was looking at what universities I could go to, and I never looked at staying in Stafford. It's always a case of I need to move.
Yeah.
So I felt like I was in a position where if I stayed in Stafford, I feel like I would have died. And so I applied to go to Coventry, Dundee, and I think maybe there's one of one, but I can't remember what it was. But all three universities I applied to go to, because I wasn't living well, I wasn't looking after myself, I wasn't doing well at college. Whilst I got provisional offers, I didn't get the grades to actually go,
Yeah.
and I rang the UCAS line after my grades came out. They said, "Well, you can go to Newcastle College." I was like, "Okay, I'll do that."
Yeah.
So I got I got an interview booked in with the college, and my mum drove me up for a day. I got offered a place, and 2 weeks later, I was living in Newcastle, and definitely.
Yeah. You can see God's hand now, can't you, looking back? We're going to listen to your next choice of song, but I know it is something very special for you, Colin. Would you share with us?
Yeah, it's a song by Chris Tomlin, Good Father. And like I said, during this period, I was really needing approval, as seeking validation from all the wrong places. And I felt like even though I'd had a special moment where I knew God existed, I didn't know him on a one-to-one basis. And this song, when I first, for a long time when I listened to it, it just didn't click with me until I had a revelation about God being the Father. And it's the same when I speak to my dad. The more I speak to him, the better our relationship is, and the more that I see he loves me. And it's the same with God. Like, the more time I spend reading His Word, the more time I spend praying, the more time I spend worshiping Him for who He is, and worship Him as a Father, the greater the bond becomes, and
Yeah.
the closer I get to Him.
Beautiful. We'll listen to it now. Thank you.
Close Encounters.
Yes, this is Close Encounters with me, Anne Donaldson. My guest today is Colin Squires. And we were hearing before that song about you being in not such good company, and you thought that moving to Newcastle might be the answer. So was it, Colin? Was it the answer?
I wish it was, but over a few years, I developed quite a few bad habits. So moving to Newcastle, I still took myself with me, and I took the habits with me as well. So whilst I changed friendship groups, they were still basically the same sort of friends, and it was just different names and different faces, but the same me, the same habits, the same struggles. Really, I still had challenges with my health I was trying to manage, and definitely still had challenges with my mental health at that point. And strangely, doing the same thing in a different city didn't change anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, I moved city, but I took myself with me.
Yeah. But that did change. Tell us about after those years, something changed.
So there's a song I um there's a song that I used to listen to where there's a guy having a conversation with God, and for one reason or another, this song popped into my head at the start of 2015. And there's one line the where God in this song says, "My child, you need gratitude, maybe just a sample." And this came to me one day where I was just sitting in the bedroom in my flat and really lost, really all hopeless. I didn't know where my life was going. I felt moving to Newcastle hadn't changed anything, and I just felt, and this song came to me, that line came to me. I thought, I need to be grateful. Like, they're looking around, things weren't good. Looking at myself, things weren't good, but I'm alive.
Yeah.
And so I got in touch with my mum, and this was right before Lent, and we spent the 46 days of Lent every day just texting each other one thing that we're grateful for. And this had a huge impact on my life. I think that changed. That
Wow.
set me on the right course. That set me on
Yeah.
a trajectory towards just improving myself. And this led to me deciding, okay, I need to go to church. I tried a few times over 4 years I'd been in Newcastle already to go to church, but when I'd go, I wouldn't feel anything. It's a case of, okay, I've ticked the box. I thought this would be good, so I went. I ticked the box. There's nothing wrong with the churches I went to. It just wasn't. It just wasn't right. But after spending these few weeks intentionally being grateful, looking for different things to be grateful for, I went on Google and I typed in churches, and there's one which was literally 10 meters from my house,
Right.
which looked like a church. And I went in on a Sunday morning and I felt the presence of God. Like, I went in and I felt warm. I felt love from people I'd never seen before.
Yeah.
And it made me think, okay, this isn't about church, but it's about what's there in church. It's not about going to a building, it's about going to
Yeah.
be in community with people. And this is something which really helped to, I think, make me serious about God, because I walked in and there's people who had no reason to be nice to me, had no reason to show love to me, but they did. They chose to just treat me as if they'd known me for years. And this really changed my life.
Yeah. So that was the turning point in your life.
Definitely. And after a short period, I was asked to start serving in different departments in the church, and it is always uncomfortable. It is always something that I didn't really want to do. But again, I was looking at, okay, these people are serving with so much joy. They're doing things that it's not convenient to do. It's not like I wanted to just go to church at 10:30. I wanted to leave at 12:30. I didn't want to really stand and talk to people. I just wanted to come on time, leave on time. But there's people who were getting there early to make sure the service was going to be on track, to make sure that people would feel welcome, to make sure that people had hospitality. And so I learned that actually there's something different when you serve. It helps you to just deepen your relationship with God. It changes your perspective about how church works. And for me, it changed it from church being a building to what church is in terms of us being a body, a family of believers.
That's beautiful. Yeah. So you serving in church, and that's grown and developed, and you've matured through that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think something that's been really important is developing relationships with people as well, and the conversations that you have that kind of spur you on to the next level. And I think one of the things very, very early on into my time at church, there's a friendship I developed with one of the members, and he introduced me to my wife at the time. But obviously, at that point, we'd seen each other in church a couple of times.
Yeah.
We said hi, and then I don't think we spoke again for a few years. But it's just little bits where just being in relationship with people, it helps you, it directs you, and it helps you to just build as well. Because like as Christians, we're not designed to be islands. We're designed to be a continent. We're not meant to be by ourselves, and we're meant to be with people. And I think a big part of that was definitely choosing to serve, and then choosing to be intentional about fellowship as well. So choosing to prioritize community. And for me, that helps because it's helping me to move away from the friendships which were destroying me to friendships that could build me up.
Yeah.
And more importantly, build my relationship with God.
Yeah, that is such a powerful story that you've shared of that change of influence, and how the circle of friends within the life of the church have built you up, instead of like the earlier friendships bringing you down, these friendships are actually building you up and were positive. I wonder if you'd like to introduce your next choice of song, Colin.
So the next song is Made Away by Travis Green, and this is something I've seen countless times. Like, no matter what I've been going through, God has always made a way. He's opened doors, he's changed circumstances for his will to be done.
Fabulous, thank you. Welcome back to Close Encounters on Cross Rhythms with me, Anne Donaldson. My guest today is Colin Squires. And Colin, just before that song, you hinted at one of these new relationships was the lady to become your wife. That's right.
That's right, yes. I met my wife in church in 2015, but we didn't have anything to do with each other until 2020. But before this happened, I had a dream where I saw a toddler run into my bedroom, and I woke up knowing, okay, who the mum was, and that was, that was Titi, who is now my wife, and it's just a special dream which we held on to for several for quite a few years, really. So I had the dream in 2017. Then me and Titi had a conversation in January 2020, which led to us being texting each other and being on the phone a lot for a couple of weeks before we went on our first date. And then a few weeks later, we went into a lockdown. And so I think that helped to accelerate our relationship. And we got married in 2021. Before we got married, we'd spoken about like having children and how we're just excited to have children, but we didn't want to rush anything. And we decided in 2022, okay, let's start trying to have a baby. And we realized we don't have any control over it. We can do our bit, but there's so many things that have to align for that to actually happen. And so we're trying to have a baby, but we weren't putting any sort of pressure on ourselves. And then in the October, we found out we're expecting, but very quickly we realized something wasn't quite right. So I think around the 4-week mark, Titi noticed that she had some spotting, and we went to hospital, had scans done, and okay, everything looked okay. The baby was in the right position, like the fetus was implanted. And there's no sort of reason to be concerned.
Right.
So we just carried on praying, carried on trusting God. We carried on holding on to a dream that I'd had a few years before, but things still didn't quite seem right. So we continued to have spotting, and we went on holiday the last week of November, and about three or 4 days into the holiday, the spotting really increased. And we're out on the Thursday. I think we spent more time back and forth to toilets because we knew, okay, so this isn't right.
Yeah.
Then on the Friday, we went back to a hotel from a cafe, and I turned to Titi and I said, I didn't think we'd ever have to deal with a miscarriage. And we got back to the hotel, and the miscarriage happened. Right, but it's for our relationship, it's such a special moment because it draws us closer together, like realizing we're losing something that we'd been praying for and trusting God for so long.
Yeah.
And I'd had this dream, I see a baby. So how is this happening?
Yeah.
And we woke up the next morning, still trying to process it. And I remember Titi was in the bathroom, and we just started praying. We just started singing, and we just started trusting God and worshiping God. And it's just it is a pivotal moment in my faith where it really changed my perspective and my belief in God as well. Because while something was really bad, that really bad thing was happening, we knew that God was still good. And we just started singing, and this song came to me, which has a line, "The promise still stands."
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the song we're going to listen to now.
It is, yeah. It's a song called "Do It Again" by Elevation Worship. And we're just sat in this hotel room, just singing it and praising God, knowing that He would do it again.
Thank you. You're listening to Close Encounters with me, Anne Donaldson, and my guest today is Colin Squires. And Colin, what you just shared was so powerful, so beautiful. And there's only you and your wife that know how you felt at that time. There's only the two of you that understand that shared time. And whilst it strengthened your relationship with God, it must have really strengthened your relationship with one another within the marriage.
It did, yeah. So we didn't talk about this with anyone for quite a long time, and we just didn't feel that it is something we needed to share at that moment. Like we were okay. Like we obviously been through something traumatic, but we were okay. Like we didn't feel like we needed counselling at that point. We didn't feel like we needed to have encouragement from other people. Like we had a confidence in God. So we leant on each other quite a lot, but most importantly, we continued to lean on God, and he was able to carry us through. And we started IVF shortly after this, and unfortunately had a second miscarriage just over a year later. And again, it is a special moment for us. Like it is horrible to go through, but something that came from it is I was having a walk on the beach a couple of days later, and I felt God say to me, "What are you going to be overwhelmed with? Are you going to be overwhelmed with what's happened, or will you be overwhelmed by my grace?"
Wow.
And it's something that helped carry me, but helped me to also encourage Titi. And we carried on just leaning on each other and trusting God, knowing that He's given us grace. He has
Yeah.
given us everything that we need. And 2 IVF cycles later, we ended up with a successful pregnancy, which led to our daughter, Ulua Tamilore, being born on the 20th of March last year.
Wow.
And she's been such a blessing. Like her name means the Lord has blessed me with a gift. And every day when we look at her, we see that she is a gift. Like there's a Bible passage that says children are a heritage from the Lord.
Yeah.
And she truly is a gift. She's a heritage directly from God. And I think something that we've learned through, particularly myself, something I've learned is I need to always draw close to God. I need to always lean on Him and just believe in Him. And if there's things in my life which are not honoring Him, I need to be able to let those go, so I can tap into Him. I think on the back of my daughter being born, I just had a few months of my heart just being wrung out, and things just falling out of my life, and attitudes falling out, decisions falling out, like things getting easier as I learn to just fully submit and fully trust God with every aspect of my life.
That's powerful. You know, Colin, as someone listening to your story for the first time, I have this privilege, and for me, I'm just so blessed to hear of a life so transformed, you know, just in the short time of your story you've shared with us today. From where you were to where you are now is glorifying to God. It truly is a life transformed. And I just want to say thank you for being my guest today. Thank you for sharing your story. And I'm sure it's going to be a great blessing to many people. We're going to close by listening to your final choice of song, I Will Follow Jesus.
Close Encounters on Cross Rhythms. True stories, real people.